So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
And here we are. So, welcome to Eric with Erika. What is this, 10? Hovind Royale? So
we're getting up.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're nowhere near counting with Bent, which I believe next episode is going to be 53.
Oh!
Yeah, but then again, I usually get in 3 of those to every one of these, so.
That is true. Yeah. You guys have the home field advantage on that one.
Well, I mean, I am sure that if you wanted to do an extra Eric with Erika every once in a while, that Bent Hovind would be like, yeah, sure. I mean, he likes... Well, so here's the thing, like, look, Bent Hovind likes doing the show, and we both enjoy it. But sometimes, it's nice to get a little bit of a break. And I can't really take a break, because, it's my show. So, but...
Man, the thing is, dealing with that much content has to be a huge drain on the old white matter.
Oh, yeah, it's... I come away from it always feeling like my brain has gone through a blender, and not just because of the alcohol. Speaking of which, this is a show with a drinking game that we encourage you to not play along with, because neither Erika nor I accept any liability or responsibility for bodily injury to other persons or property, up to and including death and dismemberment. We take no responsibility. You play at your own risk. But we should go over the rules. In fact, I should make sure that I have my Godzilla working, because I did not when I started off this stream, because I am a hack fraud who is unprepared. So,
Well, we all have those days. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Our base goddess Hannah Montana quote.
All right, so our first rule is that we will drink whenever Eric Hovind gets something right without quoting something directly. So if he just quotes a science book, doesn't count. But if he actually volunteers information from his own brain that turns out to be right, we take a drink. Because congratulations, Eric. We also take a drink whenever it's just so stupid we kind of can't stop ourselves. We also drink whenever Godzilla shows up, which he does fairly regularly. So that's our first drink of the night.
Yeah, a quick stipulation. It may seem like an unfair, dangerous rule to say that we drink every time that Eric gets something right, but it's rarer than you might think.
It's usually our rarest drink trigger. Godzilla is more frequent usually.
Really,
yeah,
it really is.
Let's see. We also drink whenever Eric tells a joke that basically that just doesn't land. Also, we haven't actually been saying that this is a rule, but we've been playing as if it is. Oh, there's Godzilla again. A rule that we've kind of been following for a while now is if someone in the panel guesses what's coming next, the next argument that Eric's going to use, and they get it right, we take a drink for that. So.
Ooh, I like that, but it feels dangerous.
Well, try not to predict every single time we pause, Like, it's especially important if there's a disagreement between, like, the panel members. If, like, oh, you think it's going to be this and I think it's going to be that. That's when it's really fun. But anyway, I think that is all the drink triggers. And thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone who's in the chat. Make sure you hit like, because I'm noticing that at least 8 or so of you haven't. So, there's Godzilla again. All right, let's hit play.
And by viewers like you, thank you.
Viewers like us.
Today we're going back in time to learn what early humans were really like.
According to the theory of evolution, early humans were primitive and unintelligent. But were they?
Erika, is that what the theory of evolution says?
Oh my god, we're off to an amazing start. Yeah, maybe if you lived during, like, the 1930s, this would have been the proposal. But no, from, like, early Homo onward, we're seeing sophisticated technology far above what we see, in today's most tool-using animals outside of humans. We've surpassed Oldowan by Homo habilis, for example.
Yeah. Also, we have for $2 from Vandelli 1998, a drink whenever Eric copyrights Daddy. Dude, we would just be constantly drinking. I thought about that, but then I realized there's no way. I can't. It would just be nothing but constant chugging of alcohol, and I have to survive tonight so I can do the next one. You know? Also, I forgot... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do we know who this co-host is? Do we know anything about her?
She's in these Battleship Apologetics things, and that's all I know about her. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. So, also, I forgot there is one thing. Any of my channel members have access to the channel emojis, which, by the way, a new one was added today. So if you're a channel member, check out the emojis. There's a new one you can use. And if they send a super chat that has either of the two kaiju emojis that I have, take a drink for that too.
Oh wow!
It can't just be any old message, because then my channel members would just spam Godzilla and Mothra. There's got to be like a limit on it, and my limiting thing is you have to be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, true.
All right, here we go.
I don't think so. Our guest today, Bruce Malone, author of Brilliant, Made in the Image of God, is going to help us answer these questions.
We will also take a look at the Atlatl, a weapon dating back to the Ice Age.
I think this evidence will fit perfectly into scientific and historical apologetics, two of our categories, as we give you the full Battleship apologetics.
Hooray! Are you excited?
Dude,
I'm excited.
Why is this staged like it's an ESPN sports commentary?
Look, have you ever been to a church? Pastors and people like that love sports analogies. I feel like there's a really high correlation between sports fanaticism, or not between, sorry, let me start off. Between being the kind of person who watches this and then also being a sports fanatic. I don't think the reverse is true. I don't think that being a sports fanatic predicts this kind of person, but this kind of person tends to be a sports fanatic.
There is a heavy relationship between like the team sports attitude and extremism.
Actually, I remember the church I went to as a kid, I believe my pastor actually had a book that highlighted potential sports analogies. So that way he could write more sports analogies into his sermons. And by goodness, were there a lot of them.
Can you imagine getting paid to write a book?
Oh, just sports analogies?
Sports analogies and their application to the Bible.
Well, I mean, now, I would have said no just a year ago, but now I can imagine someone writing a book in badly formatted different color texts with different sizes and including truncated hyperlinks in a print book. So since I can imagine that, now I can imagine just about anything.
That is more than fair. I had not even in my wildest dreams imagined holding a text like that in my actual hand. But, this year's been a weird one.
Oh, Sphincter of Doom for $2 says, co-host name is Rebecca Pike. Huh. I wonder if she's related to Captain Pike. Well, let us know, Sphincter of Doom. If she's related to Captain Pike, let us know. Maybe she's like his ancestor or something.
There's a war going on in our world against Christianity.
Are you ready to defend your faith in Christ?
The Creation Today show provides you with
the
ammunition you need. We prepare you to defend your faith.
Is this a threat?
I know. It starts out with Eric Hovind looking down an anti-aircraft sight at you like, come on, dude.
Let me be very clear. One of my sleep paralysis demons is Eric Hovind with a sniper trained on me. He stands in the corner of my room and just intimidates. Every now and again he shouts sports analogies at me. It's a horrifying experience, really.
Tesla Ranger asks what battleship this is. I don't know. Actually, I'm not even very confident it's actually a battleship, but there are a number of U.S. Navy ships that are now basically museums. All the surviving battleships are museums, both because the Navy doesn't use battleships anymore. They haven't basically since the end of World War II. So yeah, I don't actually even know if this is a battleship, but there are a number of museums, and it doesn't really take all that much to get permission to film on one of those like Navy museum ships, because like nothing that's on like up top is like confidential or secret or anything, and basically, like, unless you're doing like weird terrorist training or something, they're probably gonna be like, yeah, sure, whatever. You can film from, the top deck, I guess. Have fun. Yeah. Like, people are like, oh, they got permission to film with the U.S. Navy. It's like, yeah, I was in the Navy. That's not that hard to do. I was on the military channel once.
Dude, I already know this is going to be really educational, really great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm loving the pieces of the evolution word clipping into each other there on the left.
You know, if I had done this, this would be better. Okay, look, Eric, if you're watching this and you need a new CGI guy, because apparently you do, if this is anything to go by, let me know. I can actually do good explosion effects.
Yeah, because this is real bottom rung. Considering that, I guess they spent all the money on that nice set.
I'm not even sure that this is actually. I don't think this is even 3D. I think this is just cutting up the picture in 2D and then using a 2D animation to make them kind of blow apart. We'll have to watch to see if there's any like rotation on them, because if there's not, yeah, it's just 2D, which is the laziest way to do blowing up text. So here we go.
There's no way that.
Yeah, no, that's 2D. That's just a 2D animation. Oh man.
And raise up a family who knows the Creator,
Eric,
Jesus Christ.
Call me.
This season we're teaching
Well, don't call me. You send me an email.
you Battleship Apologetics.
Science, history, individual experience, philosophy.
They blew their 3D budget on those letters.
Yes, who could forget the 4 subjects? History, science, individual experience, and philosophy.
Oh man.
The four most important subjects that one must tackle.
Are those the classical core 4 subjects that you're taught?
I mean, I knew someone that majored in individual experience.
Well,
called dropping in school.
You know what? I hear that they just opened up a new individual experience factory down the street, so you know.
Beautiful. This is, oh man. We're in for a treat.
Battleship Apologetics.
Oh man.
From TVs and tablets around the world, thank you for joining us as we explore the truth about God's Word and God's amazing world.
By the way, she's got a way better Bible game than Eric does. I just want to point that out.
Her Bible's definitely girthier.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I think that the measure of a Bible can be like assuming assume it's a decent translation. Okay, fair enough, because you know translation is going to trump just about anything else. If you have really bad translation, I don't care. But assuming that both of the translations are reasonably good, then whichever Bible is more useful in hand-to-hand combat is the better Bible.
Yeah, I also judge it on like, does it look like it's been through a garbage disposal? Because if the answer is yes, then it's well worn, and I feel like they're more authentic.
And hers has an obvious little split here in the binding, and the binding's kind of bowed in. She's definitely used this a whole lot more than Erica's used this one.
Oh yeah, this is the real deal. He picked her for the hostess for a reason.
Yeah, she's given us some serious Bible cred, and you know what? Good for her.
No, I'm here for it. Put your money where your mouth is, baby.
Yep.
According to evolutionary thinking, we are supposed to be getting smarter and fitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a second to dive into that.
Like imagine saying, so smartness, intelligence, I should say, cognition is can be a subset of fitness. So you're not getting smarter and fitter. This to me belies a misunderstanding of what fitness is. Mm-hmm. Like I think she thinks fitness means strength, like physical strength and
the kind of thing you go to the gym to get.
Right, fitness as in getting fit, not as in reproductive fitness, which is how the word is actually used in technical literature and in textbooks and things like that.
Our friend Sal has that same kind of definition for fitness. Sal Cordova.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's too nebulous to have an application. There's nothing you can do with that definition of fitness.
Right.
Like, not only is it conceptually bankrupt, but it also has no usage as far as, like, assigning objective numeric value.
Yeah.
So, it's lame is what I'm saying.
If we evolved from an animal, our ancestors would have been ignorant and animal-like in the very beginning.
Look, even if we don't count evolution, your ancestors were ignorant, Eric. Look, I mean, are we not going to sit here and pretend that the first humans under any, either evolution or whatever young Earth creationists weren't ignorant of things? You think Adam and Eve came, already knowing about, like, say, quantum physics and how to build a computer? You think that Adam was sitting there, like, throwing together transistors in the Garden of Eden? Like, everyone accepts that our ancestors were ignorant.
Also, you gotta love the did we evolve from animals? You're still an animal.
Right, yeah, as if we're not animals anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with this, and I boiled this down with a creationist I used to get coffee with, usually evangelical people are dealing with a completely definition of animal. They're not talking about animalia, which is what literally everyone else is talking about when they say humans are animals.
They usually mean brute.
Yeah, they mean brutish, immoral, the colloquial definition for it.
And actually, the reason that the word brute exists as like a separate word in the English language, at least going back a while, was that it was there to differentiate the brute animals from humans who were the thinking animals. Humans specifically were not brutes because they could do things like plan and reason and talk. The brutes,
I did not know that.
Yeah, the brute originally literally meant animal that can't think or talk. And so, if you called someone a brute, you were calling them an unthinking animal.
An animal nonetheless.
Right, but that was the reason that we had it. That was the reason that animal was another word, because even the Bible acknowledges that humans are animals. You know,
that's true.
So
yeah, that's true.
To say that humans aren't animals is not only to go against basic science; it's also to go against the Bible, because humans being animals was so obvious that it's been well known since, the late Bronze Age.
This stuff just isn't that complicated.
Right. I mean, you just look at animals. They need the same things that humans need. Humans and other animals, sleep, food, water, they'll die of the same things. They'll die of exposure. They'll die of, in many cases, eating the same kinds of poisonous plants will kill both animals, or non-human animals, and humans. Like, it's very obvious to anyone who pays any attention that humans and other animals share very fundamental similarities that puts humans inside the category of animal.
Well, yeah, which is why, when Linnaeus sat down and was like, okay, time to categorize the humans, while he did, for reasons that he admits are poor, but while he did place humans in a separate category from other apes, not primates, but other apes, he did, in fact, put humans in as animals.
Yep. In fact,
he was a creationist.
He put them in primates too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were primates, not apes, but primates.
Right. And how much? I guess for Linnaeus, there weren't too many subcategories below primates, but before you get to the family level, huh?
Yeah. So if memory serves, I want to say that there were Old and New World monkeys. I don't know that. Okay. I don't know that they were under the traditional nomenclature, the currently used nomenclature.
Okay. Oh,
I'm not sure though.
And Tesla Ranger says Crete was the Florida of ancient Greece, hence Cretan. Actually, the use of Cretan or Cretan as an insult predates the discovery of a Crete civilization. Oh, and there's some Mothra, so we take a drink. Mm-hmm. And actually, the reason that the Minoan civilization was named after King Minos instead of being named after Crete was to avoid association with the pejorative from English. So, there you go. There's a little bit of weird trivia for you. The reason we don't call this the ancient civilization Cretans is because it sounds mean, so we go with Minoans.
That's free education.
Yeah.
For Eric.
Who are super into toplessness, by the way.
Ooh, but my kind of place.
But they weren't otherwise into like showing a whole lot of skin. They had very conservative like tunics and dresses and whatnot. But yeah,
they were just all below the belt, huh?
Yeah, it was like nothing below the belt. Like showing ankles, But they weren't even big on showing arms.
Wait, so how does that work?
So you have a tunic or a dress that has a back and sleeves, but it's open. Like basically, you think of like a low cut. It's extremely low cut.
I like it.
Yeah,
creative.
Marianne, I actually did a Google search on what did the first humans look like. 99% of the pictures that came up were something that looked just like this. Ape-like creatures.
What? I'm taking a drink because that doesn't look... I don't even know what I'm supposed to take away from this.
under whose definition is this? If you consider this ape-like, then looking in the mirror, you're seeing something ape-like.
I know, like, what? I'm trying to figure, like, heavy brow ridges? That's the only thing I'm seeing. And there's not even that heavy.
It's heavy brow ridges and a lack of a chin. Otherwise, we're looking at a fully bipedal upright posture, tool use, clothes wearing, cave painting, low prognathism. It looks to me like because they're bipedal, we've got the correct ratio for arm length to leg length. Obviously, they're bipedal, so they've got a human Homo-style pelvis, slender-ish rib cage. These are humans, members of genus Homo.
Like, if I saw these people walking around, like, they wouldn't strike me as, like, immediately inhuman. I don't know. It's...
Well,
like, Eric, you could have found way more ape-like pictures to show up here.
That's a bit, oh, God, like, the bar is low and the fruit is low hanging, and he can't even reach that standard.
Maybe it's just that they're in, like some kind of loincloth or something. Like, proper humans would have a shirt on.
I evidently, you know? I mean, these are the people, though. These are the people that will look at Neanderthals and say Neanderthals were humans. Like, this is by and large how Neanderthals were living.
Right.
So if you're going to call this ape-like, then you've got some issues down the line.
Yeah, in fact, there's the whole interbreeding thing, which is another reason that creationists like to say that Neanderthals were humans, is because it simplifies the whole problem that Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis were breeding. And it's like, oh, well, they were just humans, so we don't have to worry about that. It's like, okay, well, then why are you calling this primitive and ape-like? Because this is a pretty reasonable, if, you know, not super high detail depiction of a couple Neanderthals.
Yeah, it's the same as, I might just based off of the light prognathism and not as heavy brow ridges say that these are meant to be erectines, Homo erectus.
That could be.
But that being said, Homo erectus weren't known to make fire. Rather, they harvested and scavenged it and then kept it alive. Is the current thinking.
Godzilla.
Southern population of Neanderthals.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit play and see what we get.
Very few were an artist rendition of Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve looking like a National Socialist propaganda poster. Yeah, okay. Like, seriously. Dude, hold on, we're going to go back a second.
Imagine expecting
very
that.
Few.
I'm sorry, who was Adam's barber? Who was doing, who was fixing Eve's bangs in the Garden of Eden? Like, seriously, look, if you guys don't know what I mean by when I say that this looks like a National Socialist propaganda poster, look some of those up, because I don't want it in my search history.
So side note, I love this. I don't know, maybe this is pushing the envelope, but why are Adam and Eve always like Western modern white people?
Well, I can tell you why they often are in European art, which is that throughout history, Christian art typically depicted all characters as members of the local population. But
right, which is more understandable.
I can't give you a good reason why a modern young Earth creationist ministry would do the same. Like, it really is the case. Like, they're a lot of people don't know this, but a branch of Christianity was in China in like the 4th and 5th centuries, and we have art from them. And Jesus looks Chinese.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As he would to them.
Right, but in the 21st century, depicting Adam and Eve, who are supposed to be the ones to give rise to all of humanity, as basically being not just Europeans, but I'm going to go ahead and say kind of Northwestern Europeans specifically. Like this.
Well, even with that in mind, like my issue too is that, you know, there are some branches of Christianity that take the opinion that the Garden of Eden is this ethereal place. Yeah. In which case, Adam and Eve could look like whatever, it doesn't matter. But young Earth creationists take the opinion and the position that the Garden of Eden was a literal spot in the Middle East, which is on the equator, like right there in a steaming hot location, arid as all get out, you know, where humanity is front. And you're going to tell me they look like this?
No. And Robert Asset makes a good point. It does actually also resemble a communist hyper-realist poster. The only thing that makes me veer away from that is that these people look too sort of like Scandinavian, and the Soviets like to depict Eastern European types. Although still with the heroic musculature and the sharp lighting, which actually is a nice style. I mean, artistically, I actually don't have too many complaints about this. It's a pretty picture, but there's some odd messaging. There's some suspicious messaging here. We're going to hit play, see what else we get.
For an artist rendition of Adam and Eve. So, could the experts be right? You think they really were ape-like creatures millions of years ago?
Erika, were there ape-like creatures millions of years ago?
Could the experts be right? No.
No, they obviously know nothing. This guy, who's never actually been to college, is going to tell us the real skinny on whether or not there were apes millions of years ago.
Listen, I'm so sorry. I know this sounds elitist, but I do not think that it is appropriate to question the expertise of someone when you have the education that Eric has. And I say this for the reason that since the dawn of time, humanity has specialized. Mm-hmm. But what we're very good at is delegating jobs and specializing in what we're good at. And we as a society rely on people who, because no one can be an expert in everything. And we rely on other experts being good at what they do. That's why we call them experts. That every innovation we've had has come from people who really knew what they were talking about in their subject. And while you don't have to be highly educated to be an expert in something, for sure, there are some fields where that high education really gives you a leg up. Yep. And you have the experience and the exposure to other experts that you need to really know what you're talking about. And for someone who I would imagine can barely pronounce Australopithecine, I don't know that Eric should be throwing such stones in a glass house.
Yeah, well, that is one of those things, like, I definitely agree. Like, in many fields, the education is very important. Now, granted, if you're an autodidact and you can actually challenge the consensus, that's great. That's happened before. I'm sure it'll happen again. But the key is you actually have to do the work to become an autodidactic expert in the field before you can then actually talk intelligibly about it. You can't just show up one day and be like, you guys are wrong. And it's like, why? And it's like, well, because Australopithecus tibulas show that they were quadrupeds. And it's like, okay, buddy, later.
You have to know the area that you're critiquing.
Yeah.
Granted, like you said, there can be people, autodidacts, who become autodidacts. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
You're the linguist. I'm appealing to your expertise.
No, you're saying it right.
Yeah, so you can be an autodidact and come in out of nowhere. But what you can't do is, as you said, come in out of nowhere knowing nothing about the subject and tear it limb from limb, piece from piece.
Yeah.
This is just, it's nonsense, the idea that can occur. Even the people who have overturned consensus that's lasted for decades and decades come in knowing what it is that they're critiquing.
All right, we're going to hit play and get a little bit more, Eric. This is only like a 29-minute video, but I still don't think we're going to finish it.
No, not a chance.
Is that our ancestors?
But scripture says man was made in God's image, walked and talked with God, and was intelligent, and was made very good 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I think Adam was super smart. I mean, think about it. He was able to walk, talk, name all the animals, and get married in just one day. He had to be brilliant.
Drink.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink. Not only was that dumb, but also, I don't actually think the Bible specifies that all of that happened on the same day. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because, I'll shockingly enough, I do not read Genesis 1 and 2 every day. I know. You can put your complaints in the comments, it's fine. But I don't seem to remember Genesis being super clear on the timelines, because why would it be? What would be the point? So I'm just going to say, I'm not sure.
Oh boy. I had the utmost pleasure of witnessing, I can't remember which of the kind of brain trust conglomerate it was, but there was a group of YouTube crews who were hanging out. I think it was in the debate last evening or 2 evenings ago, whatever it was, between Dr. Josh and Suris and Praise and Jill.
I did not watch that one.
Someone in the comments, yeah, I wouldn't, honestly. I mean, unless you just want to see Josh, do some trouncing. But the interesting thing to me about it is that someone in the comments, in the side chat rather, was unironically like, looks like the experts could learn a thing or two. In reference to Dr. Josh, who's got his PhD in biblical studies and Assyriology.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm sure that you, rando on the internet, definitely have the one thing that Dr. Josh just kind of overlooked in his, what is it now, like 20 or something years of studying this topic? At an expert level, publishing?
Yeah, he speaks the language. He knows the language. He knows the culture. It's like, imagine thinking that, 20 minutes of Googling is, equatable to someone spending multiple years of their life on a single subject. The arrogance of that blows my mind. I would never, I would never assume that I knew even close to as much as someone, for instance, who has a job doing plumbing. He's done plumbing for 20 years. I wouldn't think that I would know more than him, any more than I would about plumbing, any more than I would think that I know any more than Dr. Josh on what he does. Like, experts are experts for a reason. That doesn't mean you can necessarily just appeal to authority, but you can certainly look at their arguments, and it certainly gives some weight.
Heck, I would even say that I know more about plumbing than the average person, having taken a lot of relevant courses in the Navy, but I still don't think that I know more than an experienced plumber.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because they've got, like, there's the education that's important, and there's the experience that's important. Yep. Both of those things are really key to being able to operate within a given field. And it blows my mind the arrogance of some folks who will just like brazenly waltz up in there, kick the door open, start blasting, talking about how they know just as much, if not more.
Also,
and people waste a lot of time on it.
I gotta point out one thing, and it's that Eric Hovind, for some reason, looks like he's about to blow up into a giant grape, like Violet Beauregard style. Because
it's because of the shirt color.
That shirt is like blindingly purple. Tone it down, man. Tone it down a little bit, especially on a green set. Like,
it is aggressively purple. He looks like I love grape flavored things. I know I'm in the minority on that, but I do love the grape flavor. And
like
he looks
the artificial grape flavor.
Yes, the artificial grape flavor.
Right.
I love it. He looks just like every Amish lollipop. You can buy. Like, that's the grape flavor, the juicy grape flavor.
Take some cues from your co-host and bring it down. Also, actually, I think we have the saturation turned up a little bit because look at their skin. It's really, really orangey. I think they amped up the saturation in post. I think that's part of what we're seeing.
Oh man, yeah, only the best editors.
Yeah, we want our movie to look like someone vomited a pile of Skittles all over the screen.
Yeah, it's very sharp, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe some of the other clips will have a more tame saturation level.
Hey,
we'll see.
Spoke every language in the world.
Wow.
He was pretty smart.
That's right.
Oh, that was another joke I'm
Genesis
drinking.
4:22, we read that Tubal Cain, who lived before the flood.
By the way, when she laughs, it doesn't count because she's paid to be there and laugh at his jokes.
Yeah, no, she does not count as the arbiter of humor.
All right. Vandalia for 1998 for $5 says, Erika might not be the greatest expert on primates there is, but she's the greatest expert that I can personally contact for info. And he put a Mothra emoji, so we take a drink.
Ooh, hell yeah.
I will say Erika is also my go-to for primate questions. Okay, which, granted, given what the stuff Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to be fair, I have a direct line to people who are...
Oh, yeah.
I would consider experts.
Yeah, even if you don't know.
If I don't know something, like if someone asks me a question, I'm like, I have no idea. I can always shoot them an email and appeal to their experience and education.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's the beauty of I was going to say scientific community, but I think this goes for any field of expertise. That's the beauty of having communities of experts in different fields, of professionals, because they can learn off of each other.
Oh, and
the second... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to tell a joke. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, the second we degrade the idea that there are differentiations between someone who does something for a living and an average Joe with access to Google, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I just want to point out that Genesis 4:22 definitely shows that the Bible is okay with D&D, because last I checked, Artificer is a class in Dungeons & Dragons, and Tubal-Cain was a member of that class, so...
checkmate Satanic Panic.
Yep, there you go. The Bible is A-okay with D&D. Actually, there was... I started playing D&D sort of towards the waning end of the Satanic Panic. My parents were a little bit suspicious, so like I wrote like an essay and was like, "This is why I should be allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons."
Did it work?
It did actually. Yeah, they were like, "Yeah, okay, that's fair. Here you go. You can play Dungeons and Dragons." That was back.
Probably like, damn.
That was back.
This kid's
That was back in the halcyon days of 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Heck yes.
Yeah, which, by the way, 2nd edition, there's a lot that I don't like about 2nd edition in terms of, like, saving throws were terrible, the classes were not well balanced, there was all sorts of weird stuff, like certain races could only bring a certain class up to a certain level, and then you just stopped, and there's a lot of weird stuff. However, it was a golden age for published settings. So many published settings. You had Planescape, you had Dark Sun, The Forgotten Realms, you had Greyhawk, you had just all of these with actual full campaign books that gave you all the information you needed to run games in those settings. You had Dragonlance, all sorts of great stuff. 5th edition is like, it's like, we kind of publish Forgotten Realms stuff, kind of. There's a little sliver about Greyhawk, and then we did Ravnica, which I don't really care for, because it's clearly not really supposed to be a fleshed out setting. It's an excuse for a card game, and it feels like it. And then they did do Eberron, which is nice. And for $5, Sphincter of Doom says, "Are people you defer to as more of an expert than you? Are they called nextperts?" Clever.
I do like that. I will say. I think that is the natural progression for sure.
Yes. And also, Elios0000 says, "Thaco." Oof, man. Erika, do you know about Thaco?
No, I don't.
That was to hit armor class 0, and basically, way back in 2nd edition D&D, you wanted to roll low on your to-hit rolls. It was weird and stupid.
That sounds horrible.
It was. That was one of the best changes for 3rd edition. They were like, armor class is going to go up. Up is better, rolling high is better on everything. No more rolling low. We always want to roll high.
That's the opposite. Having rolling low be the ideal is just not intuitive whatsoever.
There are some percentile games where your stats are expressed on a scale from 1 to 100, where rolling under your statistic is what you want to do, but that keeps consistent. Like all of your attack rolls, all your skill checks, and all that stuff, you want to roll low. So if it's consistent across the entire game, then I'm okay with it.
It's definitely better, I would say, but I think people generally, it doesn't matter. Never mind.
People want to see the big number on the math rock.
I want a nice nat 20, not a nat 1.
Well, if you're doing a percentile game, you're hoping for a nat 1 instead of a nat 100.
Well, okay, fair.
All right, here we go.
Crafted brass and iron. According to scripture, mankind would have burst onto the scene brilliant and innovative.
But what we read in textbooks and see on TV makes it seem like the evolutionists have proof that we were numbskulls in the beginning. Sorry, Apes.
I really hate this diminution of ancient people. It's really not fair, but I get the rhetoric of it.
No offense.
So, I don't know. The thing that's really irritating about this is that if you threw Eric Hovind into like any kind of pre-dynastic setting, he's done for. He has 0 of the skills required to survive in that kind of landscape. Yet he's casting shade on those who came before.
Hey, maybe that'll come up in the new, what is it? CMI is doing a time travel sci-fi movie. Maybe it'll come up that. I know. Actually, I saw the teaser trailer. It actually looks like it has a decent budget behind it. The effects are actually pretty good, although they're doing that retro 80s thing where like the soundtrack and like the title all look like 80s stuff, and they super overdid it on like the chromatic aberration, like what was that short film? Kung Fury. You know how Kung Fury had like ridiculous amounts of chromatic aberration for like no reason? They did that too.
Right.
So, makes it look stylized.
Guardians of the Galaxy was in 2014, so we are approaching the decade decade gap necessary for creationists to find and grasp current humor. They usually are behind by about 10 years. So Guardians of the Galaxy doing the 80s thing. It is appropriate that almost a decade later they're finally like, damn, we should do the 80s thing.
Yeah, 80s nostalgia. That's great. Oh, and Carrie Bronson says for $5, finally catching one live, messaging quickly because I'm at work, but I had to chip into the drink fund. Rawr. Thank you very much, Carrie Bronson. I appreciate your generosity.
So who said it? Okay, Beach Price said early humans were just as smart but had less information. Totally true. Yeah. That's 100% accurate. And in fact, how does one quantify information, right? I mean, you want to talk about stuff that's life-saving, they would exceed us in many ways. Your average Neanderthal knew how to survive better than your average human today.
Certainly, at least in the tundra of Ice Age Europe.
Well, not just the tundra. I mean, they extended down to the Mediterranean. They lived in balmy conditions and the frigid wastelands, and they napped tools the entire way and utilized fire and made clothing and used like specialized sites. They regulated space. They did all sorts of different stuff that we usually associate with caveman humans, but Neanderthals were doing most of the same shit.
But I would rank them at Call of Duty.
It's God. It just, I don't know. Eric kills me with that.
For $5 from 1998. Well, until the Earth had warmed up enough, where could we stay in one place to grow stuff rather than hunt gather? Surviving was a high priority. That is actually there's some truth to that. Like, it's not just a coincidence that the Ice Age ends and not that long after the agricultural revolution starts coming in.
Oh, 100%. There's this entire idea, I guess it would be just an observation, that we've been living in particularly temperate, kind conditions for the past 10,000 years or so, which, as Dapper said, is curiously right when we see the spurring off of the real agricultural revolution. It is certainly possible that agriculture was occurring in isolated areas prior to that, and we just have no record of it. But, typically revolutions are that definition, that tag is saved for when something really catches on. And people start all of it.
Which the agricultural revolution did. It's very hard to find in ancient history any group that found farming and then didn't just become sedentary farmers. The Mongols are an exception because they're an exception to basically every rule.
Well, yeah, I mean they really made it big. Pax Mongolia, right? They made it big with that nomadic lifestyle, and for living on the steppes, they were born and bred for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna get a little bit more Eric in here because I realize we're now just avoiding Eric.
Yeah, I know.
Evolutionary scientists actually have a complex history of 4 different types of hominids splitting away from the primate lineage about 5 million years ago. Then 1.5 million years ago, they began to use...
Oh, goodness. Yeah. As if there already hadn't been splits within primates.
Also, just like splitting from the primate lineage is just a hilarious concept. He probably too would find much enjoyment reading about how mammals split away from the vertebrate lineage.
Get out of here, mammals! You can't be vertebrates anymore. You're mammals now. Your backbone doesn't count.
Mammals only, fools.
You know what, actually, I've discovered recently is that a lot of people don't know about mammals, that the division between thoracic and lumbar vertebrae is kind of weird, and that, other vertebrates don't do that. That, like... Oh,
the general shaping?
No, that there are 2 different types of vertebrae there. Like, if you look at a dinosaur or a lizard or like a salamander or something... They just have what's called dorsal vertebrae after the cervicals.
Entirely along the back, yeah. So cervical for the neck, and then dorsal, and then caudal, right?
Yep. Well, you're also going to get sacral.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And in dinosaurs, you're going to get a lot of sacral vertebrae. There are dinosaurs with like 9 sacral vertebrae because why not?
Hey, if it ain't broke.
Yeah. Oh, and for $5 from Carrie Bronson, here's a donation to the Avoiding Eric effort.
God.
I mean, hey, if we're just flooded with $5 super chats, I won't have time to hit play.
I know. If only.
Well, if only for multiple reasons.
If only for multiple reasons.
These tools 100,000 years ago, their brains were now large human-sized brains, meaning that they were more intelligent than the apes and the chimps. And 50,000
Than the apes and the chimps. It's like saying they were more intelligent than the felines and the tigers. It's a really weird thing to say.
Did he just say human brain finally got big enough 100,000 years ago? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did. Should we drink for that? Let's drink for that too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I need to drink for that, honestly.
Goodness. What? By the way, what are you drinking?
Well, you know what I'm drinking. Do I have to say it and risk ridicule?
Is it White Claw?
It's White Claw. I had a nice tab that I almost broke into, and then I was like, I got these tropical White Claws. I might as well.
Look, I've had White Claw. It's not like a thing that I'm gonna probably buy, but it's fine. I just, you know what? I refuse to justify my choices. Look, I'm drinking some lemon and lime soda with rum that I added rose water to.
Yeah, the rose water thing is an interesting choice. On Chopped, usually when they use rose water, people complain that it's overpowering. Is it overpowering your drink?
It's not overpowering my drink, but that's because I'm aware of how overpowering rose water is, so I'm careful with it. I actually put some rose water in my rice for dinner today, and I had about 2/3 cup of rice, and then into that I put like maybe a teaspoon worth of rose water. So rose water is a great ingredient, but be careful with it. Otherwise, everything's going to taste like rose. Which, I mean, I guess if you like rose, then fine. But be very careful. But it is fun. It's a nice ingredient. I got it at the there's an Asian. Well, I guess originally it was an Asian market. Now it's sort of an international market because it's got like Middle Eastern and African stuff and whatever. But it's still primarily like an East Asian food market. But in their little Middle Eastern section, they had rose water, so I picked some up while I was there.
I love international markets.
Oh yeah. Plus,
it turns out
I also got like 56 fluid ounces of sesame oil for like $17.
Oh my god!
It's like $17.
Dude, sesame oil, that's a great deal. Sesame oil is so pricey.
I know. Well, I the previous bottle I bought was just at a local was at like a local Kroger's, and it was like $8 for a little like 5-ounce bottle, and I was like, my goodness.
I got mine at Walmart, and mine was $6 for a tiny bottle.
Yeah.
It was not up to snuff either. It was good for making like a little Thai dish now and again, but it's not like, I don't know. It hits different when you get it from an international market. Because it's important to know what they're doing.
I've been doing a lot of Korean dishes lately, and that you got to use some sesame oil when you're doing most Korean dishes. So I've been going through a fair bit of it.
Sesame oil is just it's so savory.
I know it's possibly my favorite food additive oil. But anyway, we got to get going because this purple man is staring at me.
1,000 years ago.
Okay, quick side note on what he did say though, because I think it's important. Neanderthals, who were a sister species to us, had larger brains than we did.
They did, yeah.
So yeah, and we're talking like the average human. We're talking 1,200 to 500, right? 12 or 1,250 cubic centimeters, and then for Neanderthals, we're looking at 1,400 to 1,700. I mean, they're dwarfing us at every aspect, and it's because they have these big honking occipital lobes, so that they could engage in these wild hunting patterns. Unlike humans, they were very specialized in big game hunting. So,
and from what I hear, we're big on the organ meats. Is that accurate?
Yeah, huge on the organ meats, and the reason is because they required so many more calories than we did. Because even though they were shorter, they were much beefier, heavier by mass, by raw mass.
They were fantasy dwarves,
and so they were dwarves. Yeah, picture that. That's a perfect way of putting it. They were just dwarves. They were honking, robust dwarves. And the cool thing about it is that, while their strides weren't as long as ours, and they certainly weren't nearly as efficient at running, they were actually better on uneven terrain than we are. Which would explain why humans adapted on the savannah, Homo sapiens adapted on the savannah, and Neanderthalensis probably adapted from Heidelbergensis after migrating out of Africa on the steppes.
Okay.
which is really cool. But yeah, they offal. They ate brains a lot of heavy lipid foods, organs,
Kidneys,
and
livers.
and they often left behind slabs of meat.
So wait a minute.
They just didn't eat healthy meats.
You're saying that my grandmother, whose favorite food was liver, she might have been a Neanderthal? She was short.
5%, baby. Was she robust? Could she throw a spear?
Maybe in her younger years.
Oh, could be.
All right, there you go.
To act more human-like, making cave paintings and burying their dead. Last year, there was a documentary produced called The Evolution of Humans. Honestly, they really do believe what they're saying here.
Yeah, who knew? They're not just making a documentary to trick you. I'm taking a drink for that. It's
I love that. I mean, that's so inherent to the attitude, right? It's like, oh man, well, I'm not an idiot, therefore only idiots must think not like me. Or they have to be deceptive. Those are the only two options.
And the thing is, like, I generally, at least at first, until they start contradicting themselves or saying things that I know they know better, I generally take creationists at face value. Like, I think you believe these things until you show me you don't. So.
Oh, dude, oh god, that's such a rough road. I could talk for a long time about that. I wholeheartedly agree. For a long time, I've just assumed creationists are legit in what they believe and that they're just convinced, and that surely once shown empirical evidence to the contrary, they'll come around. But no, it's precisely the reason why you can tell them this stuff over and over and over again. And Hovind, they don't care.
Some do. That's why I have the Leaving Young Earth Creationism show.
That is true. I should specify. People who have money in the game don't care.
Right. Okay.
About evolution of mankind. Check this out.
The focus of anatomist Bruce Latimer's work is the evolution of the human body. He believes we were shaped in large part as a result of a single behavioral change in our ancestors. They stood up. Latimer believes that pre-humans stood in order to free their hands so they could carry food and make it easier to nurture their young. He believes that free hands led to the development of tools.
I mean, it's hard to see how that wouldn't help.
The thing is that, so the current thinking is that our ancestors were at least adapted to some kind, and by ancestors I mean prior to the chimp, or at least somewhat adapted to suspensory locomotion. And that already lends itself to an upright posture. Like gibbons, when they get on the ground, they don't walk on all fours. They walk on two legs.
Yeah, it's actually kind of adorable.
Yeah, it's very, very cute. They have to hold their long little arms up. Very similarly with orangs, their arms are quite long too, and sometimes they'll pause and walk on 2 feet for a little while and then go quadrupedal again. But the whole point is that when you're suspending, it's good to have your head on top of your vertebral column rather than jetting out. So we were already primed when our environment was changed essentially by the Eastern African Rift from this lush woodland, lush jungle to this savanna. We were primed to come down from the trees and adapt easily to an upright position. Bringing up the hands was probably great. There were probably other factors that also were at play. I think science, pop science, makes this mistake of being like, this is the answer. It's always more than one factor. Right. So it could have been freeing up the hands. It could have also been looking over the brush. It could have also been making yourself look bigger, standing up on two. Humans aren't that big as far as animals go. We weigh less than a lot of animals that we hunt and kill. But standing up on 2 feet is what you can do.
Drink for Godzilla.
Drink.
We're not big compared to, like megafaunal mammals, but if you were to say put us next to like one average-sized human next to an average-sized member of every animal species, they'd come up pretty near the top of that list.
True, yes, I am referring to other megafauna. I'm mostly meaning that we're kind of rare and that what we hunt is bigger than us.
Yeah, it's like humans, canids do that, but not much else. Yeah. In fact, lions are one of the only cats that hunt things routinely that are bigger than themselves. Like tigers usually go after things that are smaller than they are.
Exactly, and that's because we utilize coordination and groupthink in order to make bigger kills that can feed all of us. we're also different in that when we modern hunter-gatherers, for example, today do this too, when we kill something, our first inclination is to share it. We want our entire group to benefit because when the group is thriving, we're thriving. Chimps live in fission-fusion societies, so they stay together for most of the day, and then they split off when they're foraging. Or vice versa, depending on how they're feeling. And so when they hunt and kill something, it's whoever can get there first, whoever has good standing with the chimp that killed it, or the bonobo that killed it.
Right.
So it's much less about food sharing. We're a social species, and that's like our whole gig.
All right. Wait, that's why I got all that moose meat from my friend. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, not that I was complaining. I made some delicious teriyaki moose tips.
I bet. I enjoy deer, actually. Like, game eater meats can be really, really good if they're prepared right.
Oh yeah, I find you want to do like a nice low and slow cook. Like, don't go for any like, oh, we're gonna sear it. Like, no, you get it thoroughly cooked, but do a low heat for a nice long time. Get some of that sort of like southern barbecue technique going in there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time.
Which led to cooked foods.
Hey, right on topic.
Which led to better nutrients and a larger brain.
Yeah. By the way, raw vegans, cooked food is something humans definitely evolved to do for a long time.
No, 100%. Our little jaws, but sharp teeth of a variety of different flavors are evidence of that, and our guts.
Mm-hmm. Heck, even to some extent, our favoring of savory foods. You don't get a whole lot of savory stuff in raw food.
Yeah, that's true.
This would enable us to spread across the world.
One significant fossil they used to make these claims is known as Lucy, or Australopithecus afarensis.
I'm just going to drink for once again, just lumping all of the study of Australopithecus afarensis into a single specimen. And I hate it so much.
It's so predictable. You won't, I don't think that you can, I feel comfortable saying this. You will not find a creationist presentation that is attempting to tackle human evolution without using the word Lucy, and very frequently without the actual nomenclature of Australopithecus afarensis.
Which, by the way, they didn't format correctly. I'm going to drink for bad formatting.
They didn't just format, they have afarensi.
Oh my goodness, they didn't even spell it right.
So, low-hanging fruit. I'll go for that.
Guys, when this is for the general audience. Scientific names. Okay, here's the basic rules, right? Genus name comes first. The genus name has capitalized on the first letter. Species name, not capitalized. Spell them both right. They should both be italicized. After the first use of a genus name, you can abbreviate it to the first letter, capital, with a period, followed by the species name of what you're referring to, all still italicized. However, you cannot do that if you're using two genera which have the same first initial in your work. Then you still have to spell them out, because otherwise it would be confusing.
You can also use common names as long as you specify at first use.
Yes, yeah.
The genus.
So there you go. Those are the basic scientific binomial nomenclature rules. They're really not very complicated. Like, please, guys. One of the things that scratches at the back of my head is improper use of binomial nomenclature in situations where you could use it properly. Like if it's on Twitter, Twitter doesn't have an italics function, so I get it, right? But I see it a lot of times in pop science articles, and especially in creationist stuff, where they just don't even try. And Tesla Ranger says, T-Rex. Yeah, technically, if you're writing any kind of work that's formal, you shouldn't start off with your first mention of T-Rex as T-Rex. You need to spell it out, Tyrannosaurus Rex. And then you can refer to it as T-Rex afterwards.
Yeah, even then, you're probably going to be starting that sentence with, this finding is frequently seen in theropod Tyrannosaurus Rex. A lot of times you're even specified further incidentally. I need to refresh my drink though, Dapper. Can we do an intermission?
We can absolutely do an intermission. I'm going to hit the intermission button, and we are going to be back in just a bit. And actually, my drink is starting to get low and also a little bit watery from the ice. So,
and it's toast. I need another one.
All right. Oh, Nani? Dare? Oh, Gojira desu ka? Hi, Gojira-san. Hi. All right, and we are back, and I even remember to unmute both myself and Erika, so that we are actually back for real. So, and
a rare welcome surprise.
Yeah, and I even remembered to make it so that my intro video didn't start up again when we switch scenes, which I'm particularly bad at. But I got myself some more lemony, limey, rummy, a little bit of rose watery beverage.
I went from a watermelon White Claw to a tangerine White Claw, so I've changed flavors.
So I think I might prefer a tangerine, and that's just because I'm sort of a sucker for citrus flavors and drinks. I mean,
the thing is, you really can't go wrong with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard to screw up a citrus flavor, in my opinion.
You know what's a fun drink? A orange juice and wheat ale shandy.
I 100% believe that. 100% believe that.
You're not gonna get drunk, but well, shandy. So here we'll give a quick drink recipe and then we'll go on. So get some orange juice and some wheat ale, and I tend to go pretty not much more wheat ale than orange juice. We're gonna need 2 glasses that can fit the total combined volume of the ale and orange juice that you're mixing together. And carefully pour the ale into one. Pour the orange juice less carefully because it doesn't matter as much into the other. Then slowly bring the glasses together and slowly with a good angle, pour the orange juice into one glass. Then pour the whole contents of that back into the other, and then back into the first. And now you have a properly mixed, not too crazy and fizzy orange and wheat ale shandy. There you go.
Properly mix is the key.
It is, and it's tough with beer because you can't shake beer and you can't even really stir it because it's going to develop too much of a head. That's why what you're doing there with the glasses, that's called rolling. That's the key to a properly mixed shandy. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, so this has been Mixology with Dapper Dino.
Cooking and mixology.
Yeah. Actually, that's speaking of which, I have lamb thawing. That's going to be a nice little meal.
That will be nice.
All right, here we go.
Which is dated at 3 to 4 million years ago. What made this creature special was the evidence that it could walk on 2 legs.
Yeah.
It must have been pre-human if it could walk on 2 legs.
It had to be. What other evidence do they need? The only evidence...
Okay, is there any other evidence besides that Lucy was bipedal that might indicate that Australopithecus afarensis might be in the line leading to humans?
Yeah, it could be the extension of the thumb, which allows for more dexterous hands and more advanced tool use. It could be the increasing brain case size, going up to about 500 to 550. It could have been, too, the dentition, where you're getting a more parabolic palate, like humans do, rather than some of the other apes, which have a more rectangular palate. It could have been the further reduction of the canine teeth, maybe. You've got these itty-bitty, normal peg-like tiny-ass canines compared to even Ardipithecus ramidus, which was already having a reduction, or Sahelanthropus chilensis for that matter. Pick the differences between humans and chimps, and Australopithecines map intermediate on those differences. All of them.
I gotta say, my favorite thing about having you on for human evolution is I don't actually even have to know what you're gonna say. I just know that if I turn you loose on a topic, you're gonna say something that works, and it's gonna be great.
Well, listen, I like to think that if there's anything that I know on this earth, it's human evolution, primates, and probably Pokemon. But those first two things are relevant.
Hey, you're not too bad at D&D either.
That's true. My D&D is okay as long as it's 4 or 5e.
Well, the nice thing about 5e is that it's brought back a lot of the previous lore. So if you're really good on 5e, that basically makes you good on D&D lore generally.
Yeah, it gives you a decent chance at getting it right.
To support this claim was the femur had an angled femur, which shows
the femur had an angled femur. There's a little baby angled femur growing off the femur, Erika. I'm taking a drink.
Dude, look at this. They spelled it wrong a second time.
Oh my goodness. I'm taking a drink for that too.
Someone copied and pasted it a second time. Also, for those of you out here who are curious and keeping up, the femoral head angle is important with regard to indication of bipedality in Australopithecines, but that's not the only angle that matters with regard to the femur. It's also the angle of where the distal end of the femur meets with the fibula and tibia. So it's the knee, a valgus knee, the angle of the knee and the femoral head. So you've got two angles that are both equally important as far as whether something is bipedal or not. You just have to think, if you've just got the angle of the femoral head, you're going to be effectively pigeon-toed. Your heels are going to clack together every time.
Yeah.
You can't have that fully angled. Your legs don't meet like a triangle underneath you when you walk. So it's double angles, double the importance.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to point out that the angle and shape of the femoral head is also important for dinosaur taxonomy. So there you go.
Double. It's a double hitter.
Yep. It's important things to know about. Also, TD Lane says we need to play more D&D. I mean,
yeah.
Wait a few days, TD Lane, or start your own campaign. There you go.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was snapping my fingers at a growling dog.
Oh, Science Friends D&D game. TD Lane, get on it.
Wide hip and
Science
narrow
Friend
knees,
D&D game.
which is indicative of humans. Humans have that so that we can balance as we walk on two legs.
But as they studied further, Lucy turned out more ape than human. The arms were built for climbing and knuckle walking.
Yeah.
Erika?
God, oh my God!
That sounds like a drink.
If I have to hear the knuckle walking claim for Lucy one more time, I might have to throw myself into oncoming traffic until it finally takes me out. Knuckle walking involves quite a few different important adaptions, only one of which Lucy maybe has. And if you don't have them all, you can't be an efficient knuckle walker. First of all, the length of the arms is not sufficiently long enough when compared to the legs to be an efficient knuckle walker. The second big issue is that the head has a ventral foramen magnum. So the head sits like a lollipop on top of the vertebral column, rather than jetting outwards like a chimpanzee, more like a chimpanzee, I suppose.
What candy would you compare that to? Is that like a ring pop?
Change? Which lollipop?
Well, no, I just mean which candy? Is that like a ring pop or like?
I'm thinking like your classic sucker, like just a round, maybe a charm pop, right? Like where you've got like the charm on top. Like a ring pop is. Because a ring pop works if you're considering the peg.
I'm unfamiliar generally with the highly technical candy analogies that are used for human evolution.
You know those big swirly lollipops?
Yeah.
Imagine the big swirly part is the head.
Okay.
And the vertebral column comes out the bottom.
Right.
So it's like, rather, if we're looking at how a chimpanzee works, the stick of the lollipop would be at the center of the lolly coming out at an angle.
Okay. That would be a very inconvenient lollipop.
It would be. Yeah, it would be. It would not be great. Now, some people propose that Lucy could have locked her knuckles. That is not conclusive. So of the three kind of biggies as far as what is required for being able to knuckle walk, also you have to have very robust wrists, which Lucy has much daintier wrists. So it's, yes, she is adapted for being able to walk on 2 feet and clamber in the trees when required, because Lucy, Australopithecines, are thought to have occupied kind of sparse woodlands, and very similar to baboons today, which spend most of their time on the ground but scurry up into the trees when predators come running. This would have been a great adaptation.
I also seem to remember seeing modern humans manage to scurry up into trees.
Modern humans do scurry up into trees, and one of the big problems with with her proposing that Lucy's a knuckle walker is Australopithecine feet. Australopithecine feet have rigid arches. They're more flat-footed, obviously, but they have more of an arch than a chimpanzee does, and they have an inline halix or big toe. So these guys are not like, if you're walking with your knees bowed out to the side, which is required for a knuckle walker because you can't pull your knees directly underneath the body if the body's at a slant in the front. Mm-hmm. So that's why chimps extend their legs more out to the side, whereas when we take a step, our knee extends directly in front of us. So an arched, straightforward foot with an inline big toe does not lend itself to knuckle walking. In fact, we don't know of any knuckle walking primate, including throughout our history, that had an inline big toe.
Okay. And for $5, Carrie Bronson says, do you ever get eye twitchy when Pokemon refers to its metamorphosis thingy as, quote, evolution? Concurrently, has this contributed to misunderstandings? So I'll answer for me. I don't get too annoyed by it. It's sort of an eye roll thing. But, I mean, evolution has a broader meaning in general English than it does in the scientific sense. And under that broader meaning, it's not technically wrong to call that evolution. But I will say that if Pokemon wanted to be realistic, then all Pokemon would eventually evolve into Krabby and then continue on evolution from there.
There you go. Or if you want to see an example of evolution in Pokemon, you could look at, this is me being a huge Pokemon nerd, but you can look at Kabutops to Genesect, where we've got, or Scyther even, where we've got arthropods that have scythe appendages in fossil Pokemon and then in extant modern Pokemon.
Ooh, there you go.
In altered experimental Pokemon. So you've got all three. You've got the triple.
Yeah. And yes, chat was frozen for a little bit because I had to scroll up on my chat window, which is being used to capture chat. Sorry about that, guys. So there you go. Let's hit. Oh, and hey, I think this woman has a snake vertebral column as a necklace. I kind of like it.
That's very cool. If true.
I mean, it looks like it might be true, but it also looks like it just might be a coincidence. And I'm the only one who was seeing it as a snake vertebral column.
Yeah, we'll go with big if true, but not probable.
Sphincter of Doom says, embrace Mankey. As long as he's not punching me.
I return to Mankey.
Its 2 legs strut more like a waddle. Its brain and body structure was more like an ape. Lucy was an extinct ape.
Yes, Lucy was an extinct ape. I'm going to take the drink because that's technically true.
Lucy was an extinct ape, and you, my dear hostess, are an extant ape.
It's true. The most common type of extant ape. By orders of magnitude.
Yeah, the most common type of primate, actually, by orders of magnitude.
There you go.
Yet Lucy has been paraded in the media as the transitional form, the proof for evolution, ever since it was discovered.
No, that's never been the case. Lucy was never the proof of evolution. Before Lucy was discovered, was there any debate about evolution in the scientific community? Not that I know of.
No, it's like the transitional species are the icing on top as far as evolution.
That's one of the things that always it bugs me about the creationist interpretation of how evolutionary research works. It's like, oh, they think that not just the species Australopithecus afarensis, but the specific fossil specimen, Lucy, is the linchpin holding all of it together. No, that's not how science works. No one experiment is the thing on which science is based.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice, right? But such is not the case because, being able to show that this is indeed the case across the board happens to be important.
Yeah, it's utterly bizarre. Look, if you're a creationist and you're watching this, or you're just not terribly up on how science works, no single experiment, no single specimen is ever going to be the thing that proves or disproves a thing, right? It's always going to be a cumulative effect of many, in many cases, thousands of experiments or specimens or whatever that give us a better and better picture, that give us more and more data, so that overall we can become more confident about our conclusions. You can take away any one find, and everything basically remains the same.
Right, and that's not to say that certain finds don't bolster the case.
Oh yeah.
When they pop up, right? But it is to say that it wouldn't be robust if taking away a single instance crumbled and deconstructed the entire idea.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be robust, and thus wouldn't be considered a theory.
Right. At best, you have like a weak hypothesis that requires more study.
Right, which would be published as, hey, here's where we go from here, in order to see if this is indeed the case.
That's why, like, 99% of scientific papers end with a phrase something like, more study is needed.
That's what mine said. That's what my thesis says.
If you don't have that at the end of your paper, there's something probably wrong with that paper.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine thinking that, your paper is the one that wraps it all up.
Yep. Did it, guys. Science is done.
We beat science.
Congrats, everybody. Next, we'll win the internet.
Yeah, pack it up at long last.
There was actually a really good episode of Futurama about that.
Yeah, there have been good episodes of Futurama about a lot of things, to be fair.
The professor finishes science, and he's like, well, now what? And he gets all disappointed, and then he realizes he can research why the universe is that way and not some other way.
Yep, I love that, and I also love Futurama on evolution. I don't understand evolution, and I have to protect my kids from understanding evolution.
If you haven't seen A Clockwork Origin, go watch it. I think, what is it, Hulu? Yeah, it's on Hulu. Not that Hulu is paying me. Hulu, if you want to pay me, I will recommend people go watch Futurama on your website. Just saying.
Wouldn't that be nice, getting paid by Hulu?
It would be nice. I'd be a Hulu show. Are you kidding me?
Oh, I'd be a Hulu show for sure, because I already use Hulu.
Yeah.
In the late 70s by Don Johansson. However, as continued research puts a wider gap between Lucy and humans, the media seems really slow to follow and talk about that.
Is there a widening gap between Lucy and humans? I'm not even sure what that would mean.
Yeah, what research? What is being referred to here? You mean, could it be possible that he's referring to finding more links? As in, completing the lineage is what is actually separating humans from Lucy because we're similar to different, more derived hominids?
Yeah,
because that would be evolution.
We found more transitional forms that are more similar to humans. Therefore, Lucy is no longer a transitional form, I guess?
Checkmate.
Oh, I have actually seen cases where basically the complaint of why a transitional form didn't count basically boiled down to it was too transitional.
Yeah, you really do want to see that.
It's too right in the middle to be transitional, therefore it's not a transition at all. It's like, I feel like you misunderstand the entire concept of a transitional species.
I have seen identical claims before. You know what? Must be a wastebasket taxon. It's obviously a mix of Australopithecine and human bones. Yes, it found in situ and articulated, yes.
Oh, and Miguel Francesco Ogar says, Dapper Dino, you made me watch Clockwork Origin, and I found it priceless. Yeah, I'm serious. Like, look, I get it. Revival era Futurama, not as good overall as, pre-cancellation Futurama, but there are some gems in there, and Clockwork Origin.
There are totally some winners.
Dapper is like PBS, sponsored by viewers like you for $2 from Vandalia 1998. It's really true. In fact, I hit my 20th channel number just a few days ago, and that's awesome. And that's why we have a new emoji. So I really want to say thank you very much to everyone who's supporting me. It really does mean a lot. It's why I have my end credits, and actually I'm going to have to really redo them this month because I've added a number of names that I need to say out loud. So
Ooh, yeah.
Anyone doing $5 or up gets their name in text. You got to give it a little bit more than that for me to actually say it, mostly because that takes a whole lot of extra work because I have to do more audio stuff. But yeah, so thank you very much. Make Hulu a CGI mascot. Name her Lulu. I could do that.
That's the way it is. That's the way it always goes. You'll always hear about the latest discovery that proves evolution.
No, you never do, because there's no longer any controversy, and there was never one discovery that was going to prove it anyway. It's the same thing.
I love this whole sentiment. Like, do you really think that the creationists and the ID people, like, do you think that they think there's still a shot at this, or do you think that it's about the money? Because to me, right, like. After the killing blow that was Kitzmiller versus Dover, putting this to a conservative judge in court,
a Bush appointee,
a Bush appointee, and getting BTFO'd, there is not a shred of possibility that ID is making it into schools, let alone creationism.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm going to be fair to GOP appointee judges and say that there's actually a fairly long history of them not doing what the GOP politicians would want them to do. The thing is that the type of people that the GOP likes to end up putting into like federal judge positions tend to be the kinds of people who are strict, like constructionists when it comes to the law, which actually means that your pet conservative project, like getting creationism into school, isn't going to work.
Yeah, and you know the funny thing is Judge Jones, who oversaw Kitzmiller versus Dover, he just unequivocal. He didn't have to rule on ID. He didn't have to make a ruling on that.
But he did anyway.
Boy, howdy, did he rule on it?
It's pretty savage. You if you haven't read the Kitzmiller versus Dover opinion, you should, because it's not often that I enjoy reading dry legal like opinions and briefs and whatnot, but that one is not that dry, and whew, it burns.
Yeah, it doesn't help that the folks who were pushing it also just committed perjury, in all likelihood, I should say, because we don't know before, but in all likelihood committed perjury.
All right, I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, but I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Judges don't like it when they know you lied on the stand. They really don't like that.
They really don't like that at all, especially when you're, representing a group that is big on not being a liar.
Yeah. So we're going to hit play.
Yeah, excellent. Let's
hear about the continued research that proves earlier claims were wrong. This happened with Archaeopteryx, too, the supposed transitional form between dinosaurs and birds.
I mean, even their cartoon looks remarkably transitional.
Yeah, they can't get the basics right, but I'm very interested to hearing your take on this, Dapper. I can hear you salivating from over here.
All right, so first of all, one of the things that creationists like to point out is that there were things that are phylogenetically closer to crown aves in the late Jurassic, which is when we find Archaeopteryx, right? Which is true, but that's just like saying, hey, you know what? What if we found like a pan fossil dated from the same time that we found like I don't know, like a Homo erectus fossil? Like, okay, and
contemporaneity is not the strong suit as far as understanding goes with creationists. I had a very large discussion once on Debate Evolution with a creationist who thought that because we could find tetrapod prints dated to the same time as Eusthenopteron, that there was clearly not a transition.
Yeah, it's a bizarre sort of thing. It's like survival of basal anatomies doesn't negate the transitional nature of fossils.
Yeah, dude, I mean, I love this idea that it's like they think that evolution means when a new thing comes along, the old thing is instantly obliterated.
Well, that's what you get from like Ken Hovind when he says, if one gets the new superior mutation, what has to happen to the rest of them? They have to die. It's like, no, they do not. They don't even have to go extinct in the long run.
Says who? Yes, says who?
Yeah.
Who has ever said that?
Actually, sorry.
Exclusively.
Jackson Wheat and I are actually I just finished my part of a collaboration with Jackson Wheat on seahorse evolution. And one of the interesting things, one of the interesting things about seahorses is we know that they evolved from relatively basal pipefish. And the distinctive thing about pipefish is basically they're basically regular old fish, but they're kind of longish, and their jaws are fused, so they have a little like horseshoe, or I mean seahorse-like suction mouth, right, where the jaws don't open against each other. But the thing is, we have extant every step along the way. We have regular old pipefish that don't do any male brooding or anything. We have pipefish without a brood pouch, where the eggs are just glued onto the male and they develop on the male. We have pipefish with a partial brood pouch. We have pipefish with a complete brood pouch, so they completely have the male pregnancy thing going. And then we have pipefish that can hide in grass and grab onto grass with their tails. And then we finally have the vertically oriented seahorses. We have the whole thing extant right now. The whole chain is represented in living members of Sigmathidae. And
there's also the example that is used quite frequently with the eye spot, so the evolution of the eye, from simple photosensitive cells all the way up to complex eyes, either in cephalopods or in us.
Yep, we have every single step of that transition as in an extant organism. Which, despite what Finding Truth might say, is actually a significant point.
Oh, Finding Truth.
Yeah.
Wait.
I have to point out, though, there are some problems with this Archaeopteryx. So, this Archaeopteryx is basically straight out of, like, 1992. So, for one thing, the feathers should be coming from digit 2, not 3, on the mantis. Also, there should be flight feathers running all the way down the hind legs. And, I mean, the flight feathers on the tail are probably a bit too sparse. And also, really, the feathers should be going up where that pink skin is on the head. All of that, at least, if not more, should be covered in feathers. So.
Well,
also, we also have the dew claw on the wrong side of the leg. We've got a digit 4 dew claw instead of a digit 1 dew claw.
They tend to be a little more behind on the science than the jokes, unfortunately.
Yeah, but even in 1992, people knew which digit on the Pez was the little tiny vestigial one, and it wasn't digit 4. It's always been digit 1, always.
Not possible. It must be a evolutionist conspiracy.
Actually, I once saw like the most cursed dinosaur picture I've ever seen, and it was this fat, featherless dromaeosaur, and both of the legs were both both the feet were both left feet, and it was like, oh my goodness! Every single second I looked at it, I was like, this just keeps getting worse.
That is beyond cursed.
Guys, don't draw your dinosaurs with 2 left feet. Just don't do it.
It was disproven, but you will never hear about it.
No, you don't. Same thing happened with Artie a few years ago. It came out as this big splash, and then when it was disproven, they didn't talk much about it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Proven by who?
Well, first let's take a drink, because I'm pretty sure that deserves one. So my first question is, what does it even mean for Artie to be disproven? Also, isn't that supposed to be a D instead of a T?
Guys, this is not.
Shouldn't it be ARDI?
No, this is the wrong animal. This is Ida. This is Darwinian. This is not art. This is literally the wrong animal.
So wait a minute. No, let me get this right. So we've got the wrong animal pictured, and the name isn't spelled right. So let's take 2 drinks for that.
Even Ida is IDA.
Oh man.
This is borderline finish the drink. So, okay. I'm so sorry. So for context, Darwinius massilae used to be considered a quote-unquote big splash in pop science because it was supposedly the ancestor of us all, blah, 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 blah. You know, the usual spiel that pop science does to regular good science. Now, originally, even when Ida, Darwinius massilae, was published, it was well known that this animal was an adapted relative. We descend from omamioids. So we do not descend from adapids. This was, to my knowledge, never proposed as a human ancestor. Rather, it quote-unquote rewrote some of the aspects of primate evolution, because the adapids, who the modern-day lemurs and galagos descend from, it kind of got a revamp as far as where their evolution occurred, because we find the earliest primates in North America, but Ida is found in the Mesopit, if memory serves, Germany somewhere. So this was never, first of all, proposed to be a human evolution rung, right? Second of all, he's confusing RD, Ardipithecus ramidus, which is a hominin from about 5 million years ago, with a lemur that lived probably 30 million years ago, 40 million years ago.
It's all monkey, right? It's all just monkey for Eric.
It is absolutely unbelievable to me that this, like, and you guys can go ahead and do this. Like, look up RD, ARDI, Ardipithecus ramidus, look at what it looks like, and then look up Ida, Darwinius massillae, and look what it looks like. This is Ida. This is Darwinius massillae. This is not what they're trying to talk about, or if they are, then they simply confused the name.
Yeah.
Which is also bad.
Also, it looks like Ida's right hand has been kind of shattered, and it makes me kind of feel hurt. So I'm going to hit play.
Yeah.
Those transition between apes and humans, like Artie and things like that, we just don't find them.
You don't even know what Artie is.
The more
Apes
recent
and humans.
Apes and humans.
Does this okay, folks in chat, does this look like an ape to you? What about this looks like an ape?
It didn't look particularly ape-like to me.
None of it is hominoid. None of this is hominoid. From the size of the rib cage, the length of the lumbar vertebra, the hands, the brain case size, the prognathism, it's just wow. This is just a very, very, I think this is the worst mistake I've seen doing this show with you, Dapper. Like, because it's so offensively blatant. And the thing is, originally I was like, okay, it must have just been a name thing. Like, they saw Ida, they saw Artie, they knew both of those are nicknames for rungs on primate evolution, and they mixed them up. But then he just said apes and humans. So I have no idea if he actually means Ida or Artie. I don't know.
Well, so that reminds me, I was watching a creationist video, and they were doing the whole, like, oh, where's the evolution thing? From, like, that Harun Yahya pioneered.
You love him.
And so they're like, look, ancient Mesozoic crocodilians look just like modern crocodiles. And they put up on screen, and I'm like, what? And it looked so much different from a modern crocodilian that I entertained for a solid 30 seconds that it might have been a Choristoderan, which is not even like a crocodilomorph. It's not even very closely related to Archosaurs at all. This is like an entirely extinct group of animals that somewhat converged a little bit on crocodiles in their later forms. But then I looked it up, when I looked closer, I was like, no, that's not a Choristoderan skull, so clearly that can't be it. And I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, no, that's just the Thalattosuchian. And there's... if you know anything about Archosaur paleontology, you cannot confuse a Thalattosuchian for a modern crocodilian. It's just not going to happen. They're not the same thing.
Okay, that's the thing though with these people. Like the only paleontologists that ever even tangentially associate themselves with creationists are like, oh, I look at Mesozoic ceratopsians or something, like something totally off the wall, and then they'll bring them in to talk about anything even remotely related to paleontology, from the Cambrian all the way up to the Holocene.
Yeah.
You know? I mean...
Although, you know what? If you want to see some great evidence for evolution, look at the ridiculously smooth transitions we have for Neoceratopsians.
Fair enough. I almost said sauropods, but I remembered there's a great transition for them too.
Oh yeah. Hey, Plateosaurus is on its own a really great transition between very basal Saurischians and later sauropods.
So who could we pick? Because I mean, I know that there's
basically the biggest gap right now in dinosaur paleontology is the sort of origin of Ornithischia. Like,
Okay,
getting
alright.
ornithischians out of very basal dinosaurs, like, we really don't have a lot of great basal ornithischians. As far as I know, we basically have essentially 0 ornithischians from the Triassic. And so, like, they sort of just kind of hop onto the scene in the early Jurassic, and it's just like, oh, we have ornithischians now. And they're already divided into, like ornithopods on one side, and very early on in the Jurassic, we get our first thyreophorans, and like, they're already turning into, like, the clades that we recognize from the later Mesozoic very early on, and we don't have a great idea of, like, what the basal-most ornithischian would have looked like, or what the transition between, you know, the first dinosaurs before the first saurischians and ornithischians. Like, how does that transition look like? Where does the predentary bone come from? We don't have anything with, like, an underdeveloped predentary bone, which, by the way, the predentary bone is what anchors the lower beak on an ornithischian. It's an extra little bone that hangs out in front of the dentary, which is why it's called the predentary, because it comes before the dentary.
So which time scale are we looking for that then?
So you would want the general consensus is that the first ornithischians probably showed up in the very late Triassic, like maybe the Radian, which is the last era of the, or the last, what is it?
Usually.
What is it? Is it era? No. What's the technical name for those smaller divisions of periods? Yeah, I think it is epoch. Yeah, the Radiant epoch of the Triassic era, or the Triassic period of the Mesozoic era. Yeah, goodness.
That checks out. I mean, because I usually when someone's like, "Oh, we don't know about this dinosaur thing," I'm like, "Have we checked the Triassic?"
So that's one of the problems with the Triassic. The Triassic, it's not always a great record. It's one of the things.
It's a bad fossil bias, bad taphonomy, huh?
Yeah. So actually, near me are some of the best Triassic fossil beds in the world, but that's because this area around here was part of a sort of like swampy rivery area, but we know that most of the Triassic was actually ridiculously like dry and deserty. And so there wasn't a whole lot of deposition going on in a lot of it. So yeah, you don't get a whole lot of great Triassic fossil beds. But hey, Arizonasaurus.
Human evolution is very fortunate because we get the very nice everything in the savannah.
Yeah. So you do get rivers, but you also don't get like the forest where everything rots too quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna hit play.
What they talk about was Neanderthal man. With the evolutionary dates, they say he was living throughout Europe between 20,000 and 250,000 years ago.
That's a long time to live in one region.
Is it? Is it? I don't know. Whatever.
It is, but I think
I honestly, it's just so easy to look some of this stuff up. You know, a lot of these papers covered in their abstract if you don't want to take roundabout methods or pay for the PDFs.
There's Tesla helping me out. Eon, era, period, epoch, age. Look, you know, sorry. The thing is, sometimes I know that, but it's one of those, like, that sequence of things is just one of those things my brain likes to just slip off of. Like,
I'm not that great at it either, honestly.
All right, Ian Chen says, for 449, reduced smiley faces. Hi, Daps and Erika. Hey, Ian Chen. It is always great to have you here. Ian Chen is one of both myself and Erika's greatest supporters, and one of our longest-standing supporters, too.
We love Ian, and we support him in all that he does.
Yes. Which, by the way, Ian,
including
you got to get me that recording of you doing your entire Neffy opening. Because the internet needs that to be a permanent thing that's on the internet forever. So
that is ungodly funny.
Yeah. We're going to hit play, though.
There because they were your stereotypical ape-like people with protruding jaws, living like cave dwelling.
What? I'm sorry, Erika. Did Neanderthals have protruding jaws?
No. In fact, if anything, they were relatively orthographic, especially to everything that came prior to them. Were they a bit prognathic compared to us? Maybe a bit. But they also lacked a chin and had an occipital bun and a retromolar gap and all of these other side kind of unique traits to them.
It's almost like they were their own species, almost.
Yeah, almost. It's also very funny to me that she's like, boy, that's a long time to be in the same region. Wait, you mean all of Eurasia?
Right.
Like,
what do you want?
Boy, that's a long time to be in a single continent.
I mean, I guess if it were like, I don't know, Neanderthals were only known from like the tip of like one little peninsula in Europe, then I'd be like, yeah, that is kind of weird, I guess. But they're not.
Yeah, I mean, holy cow. These guys, people tend to not appreciate the range that Neanderthals had. But I mean, this very much reminds me of the last chapter of local creationist on YouTube, Standing for Truth's book, Why Human Evolution is False, where an argument was cheetahs are genetically degraded. We wouldn't expect them to go out and seize dominion over the world. And I was like, what?
You know, I wouldn't expect them to, but not because of the low genetic diversity. There are other reasons.
Yeah, right. I read that and I was like, well, I mean, true, but for every possible reason, being incorrect. Like,
yes. It's like, I like your conclusion, but you got there in the stupidest imaginable way.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Weapon-bearing animals in caves, and all they can do is grunt their whole life, you know?
What? Do we have any idea about the linguistic capacity of Neanderthals? Now, I know it's going to be hard to gauge because that kind of stuff doesn't fossilize well, but like, I feel like they were capable of more than just basic grunts.
Yeah, Neanderthals, very likely, based off of the hyoid bones that we have from them, they very likely had vocal tracts quite similar to ours. We know from their inner ear that they're tuned to the same frequencies, which frequencies are typically tuned in social animals to the calls of other conspecifics, because communication is the most important kind of sound you can make if you're a social animal.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so we know that they were within our frequency, unlike some previous hominins who were typically at lower and or higher frequencies, more tuned to hyoids, less tailored for speech, I suppose I should say. But they also had proper jaws that didn't show, it doesn't look like they had heavily anchored tongues or anything like that. There is, the point is, there is no reason to think that their anatomy or physiology with regard to what they could do cognitively would have prevented them from speech.
So what you're saying is if we could somehow clone a Neanderthal, he could probably learn English.
Probably. I would imagine so, yes. I think, too, it's very telling that we interbred with them. Typically, humans don't tend to interbreed with things that we can't communicate with.
Yeah, that is one of those things. You gotta think, like, I mean, I guess you could get instances that are, let's say less than savory, where we get some interbreeding.
Yeah, I mean, they may, yeah, precisely. But the thing is that, like, I'm not sure, because we've been able to look at hybrids and narrow down who the mother and who the father was. And in some cases, we've got male human, female Neanderthal, or, male Neanderthal, female human. But it's very unlikely to me that we're going to have a male human overpowering a female Neanderthal, right? I just don't.
You think
I don't see that as
the physics make consent a kind of a physical requirement there?
Yeah, I'm thinking that Neanderthals were just more robust than us in pretty much every way.
Yeah.
Now we outthought them probably because we had brains that were less focused on our occipital lobe, and also very likely a less specific diet. We were more generalized, able to adapt to more environments. Humans are really good at going to a location and eating what's there. People don't appreciate that about us, but about us. But that's kind of another problem.
Humans are like the raccoons of primates.
Yeah, essentially, we can digest pretty much anything. Like, not a lot of stuff is going to kill us when we eat it, especially when comparing us to other more gastro-sensitive mammals.
We even managed to survive chocolate, which is ridiculously toxic to nearly everything.
And alcohol. We have an organ just dedicated to getting rid of toxins in foods that we eat.
And humans, for some reason, take the chemicals that plants make to say, like, no, mammal, stop eating me. And we're like, oh, yay, spicy foods.
Yum, so good. Yeah,
'Cause
we're
the
very
whole-
weird.
The whole reason that spicy plants make spicy is to be like, hey, no, mammals, don't do that. Like, you know that birds actually don't react to capsaicin?
Oh,
It
I didn't know
it
that.
doesn't
That's
actually
good to know.
inflame any of their tissues. So peppers are actually evolved for birds to eat their fruit and spread the seeds via birds. And they are specifically spicy to avoid being eaten by mammals.
I love that because we were basically like, that looks good to me. Like,
Yeah, I was like, oh, you know what? I like the Bernie sensation. Let's do it.
super hot. Yeah,
humans are weirdos.
it's just, it looks to me, at least from what I've read on Neanderthals, which I just got off reading Kindred, which is an excellent book if you're interested in Neanderthals, on what we know about them, the kind of current literature on Neanderthals, life, death, love, art, all of their stuff. And yeah, I don't think it seems very reasonable to me to suggest that, you know, these were hulking, brutish, apish organisms in the sense that we, like, colloquially apish,
Well,
right?
maybe hulking.
Yeah, but less so, I suppose, than us. Like, they didn't tower over us. They were hulking in the sense that they were more robust.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were like the long, spooky Slenderman ape that came along, and with the elves of the Tolkien world, so to speak.
Or maybe we're like the Frisco Walkers of apes.
Oh my god! Oh god!
That's deep. That's diving deep into the cryptozoology lore right there.
My literal favorite cryptid is the Fresno Nightcrawler. I cannot stand the fact that the Fresno Nightcrawler is a cryptid that exists that we appreciate as a cryptid. It's a pair of pants, and I love it.
It really is just a pair of pants.
I love the Fresno Nightcrawler.
The Nightcrawler is
yeah.
amazing.
Yes, we interbred with Neanderthals. There is no reason to suspect that it was. I mean, I suppose it could have been, but you know, I am of the opinion that Neanderthals were certainly capable hominins and had culture and technology in and of their own right.
Oh yeah.
We know they used the same stuff we did. We know they used fire. We know they tanned hides. We know that they made art. I mean, they did a ton of awful stuff. So, you know, I don't know.
All right, well, I'm going to hit play. We probably only have one more section, then we're done.
Kind of man.
All right.
But they really weren't that way. When they study Neanderthal, they've actually discovered some amazing things about them. Turns out they're way more human-like than we ever dreamed. They don't even look like apes. They took care of their sick.
I mean, they do look like apes because they are, but okay, we'll keep going a little bit.
They buried their dead.
Those are
They
true.
made jewelry and
Take
advanced tools and weapons. They cooked vegetables, not just meat. They had language.
Well, okay, so here's where I'm going to stop and say, given all that we said, yes, I think it's likely that they had language, but can we actually say that as a fact? Because I don't think we can, because I don't know where we would, how we would put that anywhere.
No, we can't, but I mean, there's a very important fact that he's skipping out on, which is that, yes, they were very human. Yes, they're our closest, to our knowledge, the hominin that is closest to us. So they were very like us in so many different ways, but they weren't us.
One thing is, I thought it was a tie between Denisovans and Neanderthals, because they were closer to each other than they are either is to Homo sapiens.
Yeah, so if memory serves, and maybe something new has come out of this recently, I think Neanderthals are still closer.
Really? Okay.
I think.
Because I was under the impression that Neanderthals, their actual sister group was Denisova, and then for Homo sapiens, the sister group was Neanderthals plus Denisova. But what do I know?
No, well, it could have been, but the thing is that Neanderthals plus Denisova wouldn't have been the sister group to us because they would have had to interbreed after leaving Africa with one another. So they would have left Africa probably as Homo heidelbergensis, diversified in Asia and Eurasia respectively, and interbred with one another when the opportunity presented itself. And we know that it did because we have the genomes of hybrids, things like that. So Homo sapiens, as far as I am aware, the closest that we get is like genomically speaking, is Neanderthals.
Okay.
Even more so than Heidelbergensis, again, if memory serves. That almost might just be because we're adapting in similar ways to similar environments. But humans are somewhat anatomically modern Homo sapiens are very different than archaic Homo sapiens is another thing that's very interesting. In how we looked, but not so much how we behaved. It's the whole point of the matter is that most hominins, like once you get to Homo erectus, had very similar strategies for accomplishing similar tasks, similar challenges. Tools, fire, camaraderie, teamwork, those kinds of things. But the big difference is that we definitively were not the same animal. We are not the same animal. Our genomic comparison is unique from us to Neanderthals to Denisovans. Our profile is different enough to make us different species.
Right.
It's that simple. So again, like genomic stuff isn't really my speed, so I don't really stay as up to date on that. Again,
we'll have to get creation myths on.
Yeah, we need creation myths on. And no one is saying in the chat. But I again, memory serves, it's Neanderthals that is our closest relative, and then it's kind of like a human chimp bonobo situation. Like we're closest to chimps, and chimps are closest to bonobos, and bonobos are closest to chimps, and panins are closest to humans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the two of them. Okay, so never mind. Go ahead.
Well, we're gonna have to start wrapping it up. So, first, Erika, do you have anything coming up that you want to talk about? And I happen to know that you do, so don't tell me no.
I do. Yeah, I do. I'm gaming again tomorrow night.
Nice.
I know that my epic gamer moves can be a turnoff to some people on the channel, which is why I'm making a gamer channel. I'm making a gaming channel. It's probably going to be called Gibbon Gaming or Gamer Gibbon. Or
I like it. I like it. Alliteration always helps.
Something horrible like that is what it's going to be called. And I'll probably advertise for it tomorrow evening because I really don't want to clog up my main channel with Let's Plays. But I do want to play and review Ancestors, A Humankind Odyssey, which is literally a game about human evolution from the common ancestors of humans and chimps up about to Australopithecines. And then I want to play Far Cry Primal too, and basically just be like, hey, is this an accurate representation? What do we know? Is it cool? How has it changed? How has what we know changed since this game was published? Because some stuff has changed.
Nice.
So it should be really interesting, should be really fun, but I do want to stream the playthrough because I'm playing through it anyways, and I think it'll be at least fun for me. So I'm streaming that tomorrow night at 8 on my current channel, and then I'll probably start streaming it on a new channel at that point.
Okay.
And then, ideally, on Thursday, I think I'm going to be having, I know I'll be having a bite-sized bust, but I've got footage that I'm editing, and I'm trying to decide if I want to release the bite-sized bust on gastroliths, so Mesozoic dinosaur gastroliths, or stone tools. So it's going to be one or the other. They're both pretty sick busts, if I do say so myself. So
nice.
So tomorrow and Thursday, things are happening.
All right. Well, for my channel, all that's happening, let's see. So tomorrow I'm releasing a video that I just finished rendering while we were here. I've been working on it for the past like 5 days, nearly nonstop. Like I'm talking like 15 plus hours a day just on this video. For like 4 days. So you guys better like it, because my goodness, it nearly killed me. Then Saturday, I am doing more ranting about Genesis Apologetics because I didn't even get close to finishing that supercut I made from them. So, Erika, of course, you're invited, but of course, no obligation. Do whatever you want.
I'll almost certainly be there.
All right, well, there you go. So yeah, that's basically the rest of this week. Then, of course, you know, another Kent with Bent on Tuesday, and so on. The next Speculative Evolution video is about halfway done, roughly. So, actually, no, it's way more than halfway done because all the art is done for it. What I mean by halfway done is like the audio is halfway done, which is like the last 5% of it anyway. So, that should probably be either next week or the week after. So there you go. Thank you very much, everyone who chatted. Thank you to all my channel members and patrons, and a special thank you to everyone who super chatted, including Vandalia1998, Sphincter of Doom, Carrie Bronson, and Ian Chen. And with that, I will play the outro video, and I will hopefully see you on Thursday. I'd like to just take a moment to thank my channel members and patrons. especially those pledging $20 or above: Bent Hovind, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, and the Venerable Bede. My channel members and patrons help make this a much more stable income, because as you might know, ad income varies wildly from month to month, even with the same number of views. And it really helps this channel stay on the air. But if a monthly pledge, or a yearly pledge, which I have now activated, isn't right for you, there's a merch store linked in the description, and every like, share, and subscription really helps the channel grow. Also, those pledging $10 or above will have access to free 3D art assets, including materials and models, which will be made for Blender by me and can be used in any project without crediting me